Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hi and welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast, episode 76. So today I want to talk about something that I've seen people doing. In my old job I used to see quite a lot of out-of-office replies because I was the communications manager and often needed to communicate with a lot of people at once. And sometimes I saw some problems with people's out-of-office replies that were not necessarily because of their language skills. Most of the people I was working with at that time were native English speakers, but sometimes the mistakes they made were because they were in a hurry. So they were going on holiday or they were going to be away for a few days and they remembered at the very last minute that they needed to set up the out-of-office reply to let people know they wouldn't be around. And some of the mistakes that they made were avoidable and they just looked sloppy. It was generally, you could understand what they wanted to say. It didn't change the whole meaning of the sentence, but it just looked like they didn't care. And maybe some people didn't, but I think a lot of people did. They just didn't have much time and they didn't take the time to check. So today I'm going to talk about just a few things that you can do to make sure that your replies look as good as possible. So whether it's a language issue or just taking the time to do it properly issue, you just make sure that people understand, because they could be your colleagues, people that you see every day, and they know what you're like. But if it's somebody new and the first thing they see from you is a really badly written out-of-office reply, then that may affect the way that they think about you. Think, that person doesn't pay much attention to detail. That's not very good. So it's in your interest to make sure that it looks good and it's easy to read and it's clear. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen is people making a mistake with dates because they didn't delete things properly. So like the 213th of September or the not deleting the rest of the month. So you have July because the N and the E are still there from June, or people just not taking the time to delete the rest of the date that was there before because they're just adapting the text. So when you're writing dates, also don't put the of in because it just doesn't need to be there. So 21st March, not 21st of March, even though we say of. You don't need of. Sometimes people don't say when they're back in the office. They say when they're on holiday, and then you think, well, does that mean that's the last day of your holiday if it's a Friday? Or does that mean that you're coming back in the office on the Friday? So I always say it's best to say when you'll be available again, not I'm not available this week, because what does this week mean? You don't know when people are going to send it. Are they going to send it during the weekend? Are they going to send it during the next weekend? So don't use anything like this week or even tomorrow. Tomorrow's a problem as well because they don't know when you wrote it. It could already be tomorrow, in which case they think it's the next day. So use dates and say when you will be available again rather than trying to give a time period. It's usually helpful. Or you can say I'm away now and I'll be back in the office on, or I'll be reading emails and then let them know when they can contact you is more useful than when they can't contact you. Also keep it to the point. They don't need loads of information. They have already been inconvenienced slightly because they can't get in touch with you, so they need to know either who they can speak to instead or when you'll be back and when you'll be dealing with it, but they don't need a great long list of things that you're doing or information that isn't relevant. And I know sometimes people try to put links and things in their out-of-office replies. I think that can work if it's just one link, but don't put a long string of information in there just to use it as like a marketing tool, because people don't want that from an out-of-office reply. They just want to get some information about when you'll be back. If there is someone else for them to contact instead while you're away, then give clear details about that, how they can contact that person or what they can contact the other person about. If they're only looking after some of your job while you're away, then be clear about, inquiries about training should go to this person. Inquiries about, anything else, you go to, I'll deal with anything else on my return, or just be clear to make it easier for your colleagues what other people can contact them about. It could be they can contact them about anything if they're just covering all of your role, but if they're just covering the training bookings, then make that clear in the message too, so that you're not generating a load of emails that your colleague then can't handle because they're not actually doing that. And similarly, if you are adding text in about how they can contact other people, so telephone number, email address, make sure they're right, because it's really annoying if you've already sent an email and you get an out-of-office reply and then you get another telephone number to contact and then that doesn't work. It's just so think about that when you're putting the details in and make sure that those details are correct. Don't try to be funny. It rarely comes across well. I mean, maybe if you're running your own company and it's your email, maybe then, but sometimes it doesn't work because you don't know who's going to be reading that, and usually humor is kind of tailored to the audience, and sometimes I've just seen people attempting to be funny when really it just didn't look very professional, and it also wasn't that funny. So that's another thing with humor. If you're dealing with people in different parts of the world, then what some people think is funny isn't funny for other people, or if it's something that's translated, it loses the effect. So out of office emails are probably not the best place for your sense of humour. If you're going to have the out of office reply in 2 languages or in a language that isn't your native language, then there's nothing wrong with getting it checked by someone just to make sure that if there is a mistake in there, you're sending the same mistake out over and over again. So if you want to have it checked, then ask somebody, maybe a colleague or something, or a friend. But it's best to get things checked that will be used regularly. Like if I have something that's going out as an advert or something on the website in German, I usually get it checked by a native speaker, even though I use German all the time. If it's something that's going to be representing me and my brand over and over again, there's nothing wrong with asking. I don't think it doesn't mean that you aren't confident in what you're doing, but if somebody can see something that you've not done correctly, then it's best that they see it than everyone else who receives the out of office reply. Sometimes it's good to let people know what kind of absence it is, why you're away. Not if it's personal or something like that. You don't need to tell them that your life story, but there's a difference between being away for meetings with occasional access to email than on holiday, because I know some people bother people on holiday, but I generally think, okay, this person's on holiday, I'm not going to hassle them, and I don't expect to hear from them because they're on holiday. But if they're just attending meetings or something, they may have time on the train, or they may have time during lunchtime or something like that. So sometimes it helps, rather than just saying I'm out of the office, to say why, particularly if you don't want to be bothered, then people know where they stand. And the other thing, the final thing I wanted to say about this was about telephone numbers. If you are likely to be contacted by people outside of your own country, then it's best to use the international telephone numbers, so +44 for the UK instead of just the 0 that we normally put before our numbers, just to make it easier so that people don't have to spend time looking up the country code for your country if they don't know it already. I mean, I know Germany's because I use it a lot, but don't expect people to know things if you are likely to be contacted from people all over the world. Just make life a little bit easier for them. And also it's easier to store that number then as well if they have it on their phone or something like that. So those are just a few things that I've noticed through my time looking at out of office replies. If you can think of any more, then let me know in the comments. If you have any stories that you'd like to share about this, or things that you've seen, or any questions, then you can also use the contact form on the show notes page, which is englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 76. And also, if you'd like to support the podcast, we have the Amazon affiliate link now. So if you are in Germany or the UK and you want to access amazon.co.uk or amazon.de, if you use my link, then it doesn't cost you any more, but I get a small percentage of what you spend instead of Amazon. And Amazon has loads of money and I would really appreciate it. So if you want to help out and support the podcast by just using my link, that would be great. And the link is on the show notes page too, which is englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 76. And also there's the information about the Patreon page on there as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're having a good January. I'm going to finish now before I lose my voice. And I will be back next week with another podcast. Have a good week and have fun learning English. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.